All right, welcome back to the warehouse. Today we wanted to go over a full brake bleed for the Zoom brakes. So first off, I kind of want to show kind of a tall tale sign that your brake needs to be bled. Is you can squeeze it and it'll go all the way back to the bar, right? Or the other thing is if you pump it a bunch, it kind of starts to build up, and what that's telling me is that somewhere in here there's air trapped, and it's causing some compression and you're not getting your full stoppage ability. So you'll need a brake kit. We like this one, it's been pretty good. We'll send a link in the video. It's easy MTB. You need some fluid. These use hydraulic mineral oil. Needle nose pliers, and then I've got a T15 and a T20 Torx. I don't believe you need the fancy kind with the dot. I think you just need the standard Torx, and then I've got a 5mm and a 4mm Allen key. So first, there's a couple things we need to do for initial setup. Step one is you're gonna take your lever, and I wanna make this horizontal or parallel with the ground so that this bleed port right here, basically once I unscrew that, I don't want any fluid coming out because there's hydraulic fluid sitting in here. Just gonna pop these loose, and all I really need to do is just kind of slide it up. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but right about there. And the other thing that helps is, so when it's in its kickstand, usually it's sitting like this. So if you turn the wheel up like this, then it helps keep that level, yeah. From my brake kit, I'm gonna grab my brake bleed block, and then I've got my pliers, and then I also got a 5mm. So sorry, this one is the back brake, and you can either do this, you can either just remove the wheel to get access to this, or you can take it off, which I'm going to do. The reason I'm choosing to take it off is because sometimes it's kind of a pain to remove the rear wheel. So
but we have a video of how to do it.
We do have a video. So I'm just gonna loosen these two bolts. Okay, so these are the bolts that came off, and then there's two, they're like conical washers, I guess, the bottom, or cylindrical. The bottom side's got a nice bevel, and what that does is sits on the inside circle. This is rounded, so these are coming from there. That's where
Gotcha. Okay, so just make sure you put them in the right way.
Yeah, and I think the reason that those are beveled like that is to help you when you tighten it down. You can kind of adjust the side to side. So I got this out. Now what I need to do is take the pads out, and the reason is I don't want them anywhere close to the oil, because brake pads love to soak up oil and it'll cause a really good screeching sound afterwards. And so I pulled that cotter pin out, and then now I'm pulling the pads out. And this is a good time if you ever wanted, or if you needed to, this would be a good time to replace those brake pads, but these ones look like they're okay. We could maybe replace them while we're at it, but now I just need to put the brake
spacer, is that what that is?
Yeah, exactly. Bleed block is what it's called. And it's just kind of loose in there, as you can see. They've got different sizes. I like this one just because it's nice and big, and I'm just gonna put the pin back in. All it really needs to do is just keep that from falling out. I don't need to put it back in anywhere special. So now it's acting as if those pads are in there, and it's on the rotor. This is kind of like faking that. So
otherwise you'll have to push the
pistons out. Yeah. So that's it for initial setup. Next, I'm just gonna leave those, move them out of the way of any possible drips. But next, I'm ready to set up my bleed kit. So for this, I'm using a syringe. I like the syringe just because it's easy to catch the fluid with this. These Zoom brakes were designed, they're kind of like Shimano replicas. So if you ever bled Shimano brakes, it's just a gravity bleed. So similar idea with these. So I need this, and then I got my funnel with a stopper. So what I'm gonna do first is get just a little bit of oil in this syringe just to start off with. And I don't need much. I just basically enough to make sure that no air is here. So as I put this on, I'm just gonna be putting fluid, right? And I'm gonna get my T15 Torx. And now I'm gonna do this side first, because kind of what's happening is you got like a vapor lock going on, right? So I left the top one screwed in because I wanna remove this without too much oil coming out of here.
And if you unplug that one, then the air will allow it to flow down. And
yeah, exactly. Oh, my thing fell out. Go ahead and loosen this. Here's your bleed access. Now make sure when you loosen these, just watch for O-rings or like gasket type things. There should be one in here. There it is. It didn't want to come out. So make sure that you have that, like O-ring. I'm just going to kind of push it back on the screw so I don't lose that. And set that there for now. Now I'm ready to screw in. I made sure that I had the right setting. You'll have to mess around, just make sure you get the right end. It should be in your kit though. And then just go ahead and be super careful as you screw this in, that you don't cross thread it, because it's just plastic threads on here. And screw it in till it's tight. And you don't need to go super tight, just tight enough so that you don't have any fluid leaking out. Okay, so I got that one ready. Now I'm ready to go back up to the top. So all I need for the top is my T20 Torx, and I also need my funnel. So take this off. And again, watch for O-rings or metal grommets or anything like that. This one,
I don't see it.
Looks like it's good. It's on.
Oh, is it on there?
Yeah, it's already on here. So,
that.
And this one actually looks like this is a little different size than the rest of the ones we've done before. So, most kits will come with stuff like this. You just kind of have to test them to see if you can find one that'll fit. So. I'll just kind of test a couple. Too big there. Okay, that's the right one, because we don't want any oil leaking out. We want this to be a nice closed system here. So we'll go ahead and screw that in. And I just want to go, like I said, just tight enough so that it's not going to spill. And before I'd had this one set up for something else, so now I'll be able to screw the funnel in. Okay, and once I get that all set, okay. Now, last step before I'm ready to start bleeding is I'm gonna fill this funnel up with oil. And I'll go a decent amount. Now,
a decent amount.
some, I don't know.
Yeah, just put some in there.
And I don't need to have this in, I just left that in there for fun. So, what I'm gonna do now is I've got it all set up. I'm gonna go ahead, and the idea is I'm running this new fluid down through the system and into that syringe down there.
So question for you, Wyatt.
Go for it.
When so the fluid that comes out is going to wind up in that syringe. Is that reusable for another thing, or are you going to chuck away?
If it's like a relatively new bike, you could probably still reuse it. Most cases though, especially if you've been riding your bike for a while, I'd say it's unreusable. It gets junk in it, it gets black. We'll probably see some black pieces or stuff come out of this one, and you don't want that going back in. The main thing that we're watching for is we want to make sure we get all of the air out of the system, right? So to do that, we're going to watch for air bubbles in here in this system, and we're going to kind of watch our funnel. So we'll keep checking, and we want to run the fluid through until this either changes colors to the pink of the new oil that we're putting in, or
what color is the oil in there now?
The stuff in it now, it's just like a slightly different color.
Okay.
You can kind of tell. If it's old, it'll be like black. It'll be very dirty looking compared to the kind of clean pink that this new stuff is. But really, I'm mostly watching for those bubbles. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of pull my syringe back a little bit and just let those bubbles start coming. You can already see how many have come through. And I want to make sure that I'm not pulling any air through the system, so I'm just coming back up to double check. So
pop up here and see what we're looking at here.
See, there's still plenty of oil. Just want to keep checking that. Come back here. I think we're getting probably pretty close here. I think I got most of the bubbles out. Okay, back up to the top. Now, another thing I'm doing, I pulled out most of the bubbles that I could see down there, right? And so now I came back up to the top, and I'm just gonna kind of squeeze this a couple times to just see if I can get any more bubbles to come out. And you can see I can get some coming out, so just gonna squeeze this a couple times until I get those bubbles coming out.
Nice slow pace, not like anything crazy.
Yeah, I don't need anything crazy. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back down and just pull just a little bit more oil through here. Yeah, when I came back down here, there were some bubbles sitting in the line, so just gonna pull these out. Okay, it's probably right about where I need it.
Hey, you're running out of oil up here. So
low there, okay, perfect. Okay, so now my next step is, well, that's like almost perfect, isn't it? Unless I ran all the way out. Oh, I think I used too much.
So if you do run out, you can just add more oil and start pulling again, or do you have to?
You gotta kind of pull again to try and replace. Hopefully it's kind of at the top here. So because I ran out of oil, I'm just gonna actually go down here and I'm gonna push a little bit up. So when I came back down, there's a few more bubbles that were in the line, so I'm gonna pull them up into my syringe. Okay, and then I'm gonna push down. So goal is don't do what I just did.
But if you do, this is how you fix it. So,
yeah, this is what you can
good.
do. Okay, so I'm gonna go to probably right about there. And you can tell, so the oil is pretty clean. You know, there hasn't been any really gunk, and that's just because of how new this bike was. But come back up here. Okay, I think we've got all of it out. So I'm just gonna double check, pull just a little bit more out down here. I think I've got all the bubbles. So now is my time to remove the funnel. So I'll come up to the top here, and some of these are better. This one is not the greatest. It doesn't have a super good function or suction. So I added a second washer thing to it, but I'm probably gonna spill a little oil here. So just try your best to stop the oil from spilling, but it's not the worst if it does.
Not a drip. Look at that.
So what I'm gonna do is I want to make sure that there's no air here, and so I'm just gonna kind of just drip a little bit in, so that it's kind of almost overflowing there, so that when I put my screw back on, which I'm going to do, that way I know for sure that I don't have any air.
You can see that oil, excess oil flowing out the top.
Nice. So here's where you can grab your paper towels and just...
Do you have any particular brand of paper towel that you recommend, Wyatt?
No, I don't. Another thing to do, something that's great for cleaning off oil off bikes, is you can get a little bit of rubbing alcohol and put that on your paper towel and rub it around. That'll help a lot. So I've got the bottom one done, or the top one. So I'm gonna come down to the bottom now and remove the syringe.
And again, you shouldn't have oil flowing out the bottom because it's plugged up at the top. Right?
Exactly, so that's why I went and did the top first. Oops. So there will probably be like a little bit of oil that kind of likes to leak out of here right at the start. So I'm just gonna kind of tip this up. Now this is why you don't want your brake pads in right here. It's very hard to not get oil on them.
Who needs a screwdriver? You've got your fingers.
That's right. This doesn't need to be crazy tight, so I probably don't really even tighten it more. But
I noticed when you undid it, it didn't seem like it was crazy tight. So how tight do you want to make it?
Yeah, just snug. 1 Newton meter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just 7.
Yeah, 7. Maybe a little less than 7. 7 something, I guess. But no, I don't know. Just so it's snug. It shouldn't have to be.
You don't want to crank it, but you
don't want to crank it because you definitely don't want to strip it. So now that I've got both ends plugged up, before I put the pads in, before I call it good, I'm going to go ahead and just give it a test and see how I like it. And it feels great, super solid, very responsive. So I'm good to go ahead and put the pads back in and get my bike the rest of the way ready. So now, like I said, now would be a really good time to come through and I should have grabbed some oil, or some rubbing alcohol, I mean. So you just want to make sure you don't get any oil on the pads or on the rotor, or else it's going to cause you issues in the future. So I'll go ahead and take out that bleed block. Done with that for now.
Now, Wyatt, if you do get oil on your brake pads and rotor, what can you do? What are your options?
It kind of depends. If it's not too bad, you can sand down your brake pads and then douse them in rubbing alcohol and light it on fire. And that helps burn out.
Is this something you should do in your living room or outside?
Not in your living room, yeah. Do it on some cement or some... But that's one thing you can do. Other than that, you might, if it's really a bad case, like you got a lot of oil on there or it had a long time to sit,
you're just going to be replaced.
Yeah, you're just going to have to replace them. Sometimes there's just not. It's kind of a porous material, and it really likes to soak up oil for some reason. But just remember when you put this back on, to put the washers in first. Or drop the washers. Actually, I'm going to put the washer and then a bolt. So all right. And when you're putting this on, we'll have to make maybe a more detailed video one time about adjusting your brakes. But try and if you look down from the back here, you can kind of see the gap of light on both sides of the rotor between the pad, and you want to get that right in the middle if you can. So
let me ask you this, Wyatt, if a good way to center that, because I've seen in other YouTube videos, if you have somebody squeeze the brake while you tighten these, does that do a decent job of centering, or is it better to just eyeball it?
So that's a really good way to get it close, but the problem that I've always found with that is when it kind of depends on the bike, but often when you get like the last little bit of tightening your caliper down here, if you twist it, then it ends up pushing this off to the side. And so even though it was centered on the pad when you started tightening it, whenever I try and do that way, it always tends to
So just maybe get it close with that, and then just
get it close
eyeball
with that, and then if it's still rubbing, you can kind of eyeball it from there, and just see. That's kind of what I'd recommend. But yeah, that is a great method to get it very close. Usually, it's not very far off from there if you do that. All right, and I think that's pretty close. I'll have to get the wheel up and spin it from here on out, but I'll just kind of tighten it down and test it. Come back up to the top here, and when I had loosened it, I just loosened the top one, so I'll just kind of loosen that back up, and it was just resting on that shifter, so right there's probably pretty close. Looks about right. And then I'll just tighten that down. Okay.
And that's it.
And your brake is bled, brand new, ready to go. Feels good. There you go.
All right.
Sweet.